Looks like we are fired up and mostly live. Got the chat for the Twitchers and the YouTubers. I just need to get the chat for my live coding buddies. Since that is the largest portion of my viewing audience, they get the webcam as well, which is a little nicer than just staring at my screen. So let's see here. Pull up live coding and pop out the chat. So, live coding buddies. Don't want to. There we go. Don't want to rebroadcast that. There we go, and bring chat over. All right, so we are now officially live and good to go. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I bring you news of great joy and awesomeness, which is we are officially live. After about a year and a half of working on this project for only a couple hours a week, we are live. So that is absolutely great. You can come visit the project if you so desire. Please note that this is an alpha, so data is likely going to disappear at some point. Features aren't going to work. Security might not be all that it's cracked up to be. Use at your own risk. That's really what we're going for. And you know what? We're going to put that notification right up here. Welcome to our live alpha. Please note these things because it is really important that folks know right off the bat that this is a use at your own risk system. But you can just go to dracosoftware.com/Draco model. That is the actual place that you can go to see the tool and to try the tool and to use the tool. So I am very excited. This is quite the thing. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I'm going to move that down virtual screen and make the code bigger. Get rid of that configuration stuff, which turns out the way Google does it is remarkably secure. Leia has just joined. I don't know if you can see my previous chat messages, but we're live. You can go check out our thing. And so I'm going to close all the others. And I'm going to close this as well. And we are going to look at our modal. And we're going to inspect that buddy. And this is the load model modal. I always love that name. Load model modal. Right. And here's our div for our load model model. Okay, and so now let's go ahead. Welcome to our alpha. This software is very much in the works. It may not be fully secure. It might lose data unexpectedly. It might spelling change to thank you spell checker. Let's see here. I'm going to make this an unordered list and indent it with list items properly. Let's see, get proper warning. Absolutely. So, nice to see you too. What will we do here? So we've just gone live with our tool. I'm very excited about it. And so right now we're just posting a big warning on the front of our thing so that when we hit our publish button again, it will show up and say, use at your own risk. no guarantees whatsoever with this software in its current state. You know that word, one of those words that you've spelled a million times and you can never seem to spell it right no matter how you try, like restaurant? Guarantee is another one. I just never have ever been able to spell guarantee correctly, ever, the first shot. This is why we invented spell checker. There are absolutely no guarantees whatsoever with the software in its current state. Hopefully that will change in the future, but for now, use at your own risk. Okay, so that's up. So what do we got working? So that's an excellent question. Let's do a little show and tell about what we're doing here, and I'm going to do it on the actual live site. So I'm now deploying to Google App Engine. It takes just a second, actually. They've made it very easy. The little script that I used to deploy it is actually just a one-liner. So we're going to go ahead and refresh the page. Hopefully we'll get our new wonderful warning. Sure enough. Great. So this tool helps us build models of other software. So in this case, we're going to create a sample model, and our sample is going to be, we're going to say music database. It's been a while since we've done that, and I was just at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so our music database sounds like a good project for us to work on. Give me just a second. I'm going to bring there we go. Get the chat and the browser window next to each other so that I can respond to comments. Deploy, yeah. So here's our music database. So we're thinking, okay, I want to build a music database, and that means I am going to need a song. It's probably my, kind of like focus, right? That's always what we're focusing on. And in fact, in a lot of cases, what we think of as a song is just a recording of a song. So let's go ahead. So we'll have a song, right? And then let's also add a recording, because that's going to be by a certain artist at a certain time and in a certain style too, right? It might be a live versus a studio cut of the same song, right? Nirvana was really famous for one of their live unplugged things they did with MTV. But so it's the same song, it's just a different recording. All right, so a song is going to have a few things. First of all, it's going to have a title. It might not have a title, but the truth of the matter is if it doesn't have a title, we can't distinguish one from another, so we're going to give it a title. All right, so we have a song that has a title, and it has a authored, which is going to be date, right? So that's going to be, yeah, authored is a date. What else does a song have? Well, it'll have associated lyrics. It might have more than one set of associated lyrics, depending on who it is. So there is the music portion, and then there is the lyric portion. Of course, the music can also have different arrangements. That starts getting really complicated. We're just going to keep it simple. So perhaps we're just going to have, let's see, title, authored, oh, well, and we'll have to have a composer, right? Right, and so we'll just keep that as a string. So maybe this is just a database of songs instead of like the actual contents of every possible song, which starts to get to be an intractable problem. Okay, and so now we have a recording. And so the recording is going to have a reference to the song, right? And so we say, all right, that's going to be a song, and we're going to reference that song there, right? So this is a recording of that song. We are going to assume at this point a one-to-one relationship. It is possible to have medley or something like that that has more than one song. But again, this gets intractable because music is an expression, is a form of human expression, and is therefore really a complex problem by its very nature. So I'll have an artist, and we're going to have probably more than one artist. So we're going to hold off on filling out what that is exactly. Let's go ahead and create an artist thing. And an artist, they're going to have a name, and that's going to be a string. And some artists change names, but name is good enough for now. Date of birth, and that's going to be a date. What else is an artist going to have? Well, artists can switch instruments and things like that. They can have genres. That's true. Now, is that the song? Because some go around different genres, but genre is an excellent idea. So let's go ahead and add a genre. Genre. And I'm actually going to associate that with recording, because you can have the same song recorded in a couple different styles. But we're going to go ahead and here edit our genre, and that's going to have, let's see here, we'll just do country, disco, pop, rock, techno, rap, classical. All right, and we could go on like this forever, depending on how crazy detailed you wanted to get with your genres, but that's at least pretty good for now. Right, that takes care of a lot of pop music anyway, or the more common music. I have seen music stores with fewer categories than that. And then I'm going to make, so let's do some things here. And again, this is just a sample. This is a sample that I'm putting together. Somebody else could come up with another way of organizing the data for music, because again, it's an extraordinarily complex problem. So in this case, it's going to have genre, and that's going to be a reference over to genre. I think that's very apropos that a recording be in a certain genre. I've heard like country covers of Boyz II Men music, that kind of thing. That sounded really good, and it was very clearly the same song, but that recording was in a different genre. And then an artist, we're going to go ahead and reference artist, but in fact we're going to change this to artists, right? And then we're going to make it a list. So now we have a list of artists. So we have the song, so a recording is a song with a bunch of artists, because it could be a couple people working together in a genre, and a record date. Right, and then maybe copies sold, right, and that's going to be an integer. So how many versions of that recording have been sold? So you can start putting this together. And seeing that we could get really complex as you go further and further down the rabbit hole of this music database. And actually, I want to go at least one more layer. Whoops. Didn't mean to have that enumeration. I don't know if deleting that's going to break things, so I'm going to actually pass on deleting it for now. Okay, so we're going to do album. Right, and so then we can do album title. Right, and that's going to be a string. Record label is also going to be a string. And date published is going to be a date. And recordings is going to be a reference to recording. Right, except for this is going to be a dictionary. And the key is going to be an integer. So that's going to be like the track number, right? So you buy a CD and it has track numbers 1 through 99. Or on an MP3 album, they usually still have the tracks listed in order. So you can say, oh yeah, I want track 7 off of that. For an album, every recording gets an integer as an ID, and then as a reference to the recording. So this is actually a fairly good little data structure for all of the things that we've just been talking about. So this seems pretty thorough, at least for a test system. So now we can take this and hit render code and say pop it over to MySQL, and then it downloads a file, right? In this case, it downloads a SQL file, And here is our MySQL database that works. And so here's the create database statement, creates the genre table. It has both a varchar name for it and a friendly name. So in this case, they're all the same, except for the capitalization. I'll show you one of the differences later, though, because some systems want these you want these friendly names for some things, especially user interfaces, that kind of thing. Your main tables, right? You have your song table, title, when it was authored, composer. So this all just goes together and works great. Now I'm going to make one adjustment. I'm going to come over here to genre. Hopefully when I click edit, it won't explode in my face. It didn't. East Coast House, right? Very, very specific genre. This is a terrible thing for a genre table. Uh-oh. Did I just blow something up? I'm not sure. I may have just blown something up. Using database. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, look at that. Oh, man, it's all kind of borked now. Huh. Our genres are still good, though. East Coast House. Done. Does not like. So the idea here, and apparently we have a bug in production, hence our giant warning sign, is that it would take something with spaces and make it would have a consistent string. So let me go back to my downloads, back before I blew things up. And it would just put underscores or something in there to make it so that you had a very consistent genre for the back end of your system, instead of having spaces and other things which can confound computers because of magic strings, or confound programmers, actually. So it looks like we just skipped over that for now. Okay, so we have our main tables, our song table, recording table, artist table. And again, we have the cross-database relationship. So our recording artists to artist, right? So this is building the association from the recording artist to the artist table. So it creates that association. And all of these commands should work. This should be able to select all of this, copy it, and pull open a MySQL database. Right. And I should actually be able to just paste all that code right in there and then use music database. Right? And then I just do show tables. There they are. Like, this is actually the thing in my database. Z enum genre table. And there it is. Country, disco, pop, rock, techno, and classical, and rap. Other than the fact that apparently when I refreshed the page, I blew something up on the website. Oh, and that is all of my server logs and stuff that's going on in the background. So it goes. Absolutely seems to work. So clearly we have a couple of bugs that need to be worked out in our music database. So I think, let's see, it's 9:45, so we got a little bit of time. We've done a lot tonight already to a certain degree. I just did a lot of it offline because it required passwords in the background. All right, so let's take a look at our new enumeration here. First of all, enums, new enumeration. Delete that item. Yay, it deleted. That seemed to actually work. If I refresh this, does it come back? No, it does not come back. Excellent. All right. That actually worked. So updating it blew things up, but deleting the spare enumeration did not work. So I'm looking at this, and it looks like all of the cross-references seem to have broken, right? So the artist relation to the song, to the recording, and to the album between all of those items. All of those cross-references have broken. So now we get to find out why. Let's see if our system can tell us something about what's going on behind the scenes. Alright, so a song is going to have artists. And if I say that that's a string, everything seems to be okay. If I refresh the page, yeah, it seemed to really like that. Okay. So artist is a string, it had no problem with. Now, if I call the artists as a reference to artist, that's where we seem to have problems before. Title string, artist's artist, artist name string. That seemed to work okay. Oh, that relationship is still there. It works. So apparently it only destroys things when I update genre. I have no idea why that would happen that way. Well, some days that's just how it goes. That's why this is an alpha and we have that nice big warning on there to let people know that this is something in the works. Okay. Alright, so yeah, because our recording had like date recorded, and that was a date. And an album, date published, record label, that had recordings. And that was a reference to recording, and that was a dictionary with a key type of integer. Again, alright, well, all of that seems to be okay. You know, this says that the work is saved. I'm tempted to believe it. Okay. So a recording is of a song, which is a reference to song. It is a single reference. Oh, and you know, we can say that it's required. Why not? That seems an appropriate thing to do. Yeah, so like artist is also missing date of birth, which was a date which we needed. So that wasn't the only thing that we accidentally nuked along the way. All right, and then that recording had a reference to genre. Okay. So we rebuilt at least enough of this to get the idea across for if we come back to this model as an example of how we'd want our system to work. All right. So albums, recordings, songs, artists, genre, all of that seems to be at least reasonable. Of course, I'm going to have to go back and figure out why the heck genre is so broken. But I know the enumerations are one of the last things that we did, so I'm not terribly surprised that that's the part that has bugs in it. All right. So the next thing we got to figure out is what do we do from here? Well, it's already 9:50 East Coast time, and I'm pretty tired. It was a busy day, so I might actually call it just a short and early broadcast. But just, you know, hooray, everything works. Go play, go work with the system and do stuff. And I am curious. I am going to try to save the data and not nuke the database if at all possible. Again, for like the genre, I'm not sure what happens, so it could be that if I update my genre, somebody else's data is going to get blown up. We're just at the point where this is really first live. So that said, this is very encouraging. Very happy with how this goes. I think next week we're going to work on rendering code some more. I'm going to go back to this HTML code renderer, and we're going to build that out so that it uses, so first of all, that it will download the code that you render, and that it will make use of Bootstrap as default, just because most sites do use Bootstrap by default. Now I know you can do it without, but we may just have a HTML/Bootstrap option in there instead of this pure HTML one. So since we do have some time, I want to talk about a little bit of JavaScript theory that my colleagues and I were discussing this week. Hold on a sec. Let's MySQL. Let's go ahead and, before we get too far into that, can't type tonight. Go ahead and git push origin master. All right, so that's up on my server, which is wonderful. We can close this. So yeah, my colleagues and I were talking about JavaScript, and one of the concepts that we ran across, and there was an excellent article about it, was proper prototypal JavaScript. And if you look it up, right, you'll come up with an interesting article, and I think it was a list apart. And yeah, so April 26th. This was the article, right? And that I was reading about, and they had a big aha moment when they were working with JavaScript about using object.create and having prototypal JavaScript, because JavaScript is a functional language, and sure, it has this sorted history. So this was an interesting article and got us thinking about how do we want to do inheritance in JavaScript and that kind of thing. So you can just look it up, a list apart, prototypal JavaScript. So I thought about it and I worked with it a little bit, and I have come to the decision that this is a terrible, terrible idea, actually, just because the behavior of some of the objects that you have are going to act in ways that you don't expect at times that you don't expect it. Because if there's any kind of side effect at all for any kind of function, it will it'll disassociate something that you might have been relying on having an association, or that things might have an association when you don't expect them to. So let's talk about this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead, give us a nice blank page, fire up a JavaScript console. So this is no plugins, no nothing, absolute pure JavaScript. Why does Blake think that prototypal inheritance is a bad idea? I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think it's very interesting and good for behaviors. I think it's bad for objects in the way that we conceive of them as objects having properties and behavior. So here's an example. Right, you have the math object, right? And so here's, and it has a bajillion functions, and it does a ton amount of stuff. And math is a great library. It does some really useful things. And so if you want to extend the math object, then you can do var myMath is equal to object.create, and then you can pass in math, right? And so then you have myMath, and myMath, what happens is you say myMath, right, and you don't see anything in it, but there's an inheritance architecture there, so that anything that myMath doesn't have, it knows what its prototype is. It knows who its parent is, so that if you do myMath.max of 1, 2, it actually goes up to the parent and calls that function and says 2. So let's go ahead and we'll just do paint get really fancy here and pull up Paint. Okay. I actually have a tablet just for this kind of thing. All right. So what the heck did I just do? All right. So when I created my object, right, I said var my math, right, and then I said is equal to object.create of math. So that's my math, and that's math. Right, so it creates this kind of relationship where my math points to math. And that's all there is to it. So anything that it doesn't find in my math, it goes to its parent, right, math in this case, and it looks at its parent for the function or the property. And the property part, that's where we get into trouble. Do I have GIMP on here? No. I don't have any kind of art or paint stuff on this machine, unfortunately. Okay, I do have GIMP 2 on this machine. On the parent bare metal machine, as opposed to the on the machine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new diagram. Alright, so hopefully you'll be able to see most of this document as I draw it. Okay, excellent. Alright. So, harder brush with a smaller size. Can't see that at all. There we go. Alright, so if I create my child object, I have my child object here, right, and I tell it to base it off of, right, the prototype of that object is its parent object. And that's all hunky-dory for methods, but it gets really confusing when you have properties. Because here's what happens next. All right, so say you have a parent-child relationship, right? And so you're going to have var cat is equal to object.create of null, right, which is to basically say I want to create a brand new object based on nothing. So you can take a look at cat, and there's nothing in cat, right? And so we have our diagram where we show that we have cat. Right, I'm going to just undo everything here. And so this is cat. This is my cat, which is great. That's wonderful. And so now we're going to have cat.age. And my cat maybe is 10 years old, right? So then I just take a look at cat, and cat has age. And then we're also going to give the cat a method, right? And we're just going to say cat get older. And that's going to be a function that is going to take no arguments. And that's just going to take this dot age plus plus. Right, and so if I say cat.getOlder, that gives me the function back, and then if I call it, I look at my cat, and my cat is now 11. Well, okay, so that makes sense, right? So now we're going to go back to our little diagram here. Okay, so our cat has an age, right, and then it can get older. Now, so that's all one object, right, with property and method. Now, in prototypal JavaScript, that makes me very, very happy, but also what I may want to do is I say I have a kitten. All right, and so var kitten is equal to object.create of cat, right? So I just want to say I want a kitten, and my kitten is prototyped by the cat, and so if I say kitten, well, okay, so the kitten doesn't have anything in it, but I can say kitten.age, and now we get 11. So that's kind of weird, because we haven't initialized anything. So what the hell's going on here? Well, so again, what happens is in this, we have kitten, right? And kitten, when we do the object.create, we passed in cat, so the kitten references cat. So anytime you try to access anything in kitten, if this kitten object doesn't have it, because we didn't explicitly define an age in kitten, so it says, you know what, I don't have an age attribute. I'm going to go up to the cat, and I'm going to get this age attribute, right? And so that's why we get that 11 back. And so if we continue, if we do cat.getOlder, right, and then we look at the kitten's age is 12 because the cat's gotten older, and the kitten still holds a reference to the cat. And so now the kitten's age is 12 because the cat's age is 12. So basically, if you don't initialize anything, if you initialize it, then kitten gets its own version of age, right, as opposed to using the cat one, but that assumes that you know all of the properties of kitten and can initialize them to 0 or whatever it is that you want to initialize them to. Gets even weirder, right? So that's one where I'm just sitting here kind of going, I'm not super keen on this. Here's where it gets bad. Right, okay, well, so kitten is just a reference, or kitten contains a reference to cat, and that's its own problem. And so, you have your cat.getOlder, and then that increments the kitten's age, but it's just a pointer, whatnot. So then I can do kitten.getOlder, because kitten has a reference to that function. So now the question is what the heck just happened, right? Because now you called kitten getOlder. Well, the kitten doesn't have a getOlder, so it references the getOlder of the cat. And then in that, it has a this.age.increment. And what it does is the kitten goes to that getOlder function and then looks to its own age, finds that it doesn't have one, goes up, gets this age, and then sets this age down here. So it has this come up, go up, get the getOlder, get the age, set the age down here. So kitten is now 13, right? Whereas cat is still 12. So the kitten is now older than the cat because the kitten's age is incremented, but also the kitten, if we just look at kitten, now has its own age. So the kitten is no longer associated, the kitten's age is no longer associated with the cat's age. So now if we do cat.getOlder twice, we look at the kitten, that's still 13, and then the cat's now 14. So now these two variables, that one used to be a reference to the other object, and so they're always in lockstep. Now, just by calling kitten getOlder, it's created its own copy of the age attribute, and by doing that has now disassociated the kitten's age from the cat's age. And so what used to be linked together are now totally independent things, and it's not easily identifiable that kitten.getOlder is going to disassociate one from another. And that's the point at which my colleague at work and I were just like, you know what, we're done. we can't be doing this, because that's going to introduce, all kinds of bugs. Because, we're just referencing something that we had referenced before, but just by calling, a quick getter or setter, you could, when an object gets created, it might have an association, and then by calling a getter or setter, you might accidentally disassociate things. And it just started devolving into a mess. And we figured this is creating a whole new family and class of bugs that, we're not even familiar with debugging these kinds of problems because it's not intuitive. So we just said, you know what, as neat as the prototypal model is for doing this kind of work, this semi-association doesn't work. And if it were, other programming languages do a really good job of isolating behaviors from data, but JavaScript is JavaScript, and everything is everything, which is incredibly powerful on one hand, But on the other hand, turns this into a bloody nightmare, right? There's no way that we can cleanly, create some hard and fast rules, or at least no way that I could think of to cleanly and concisely create some hard and fast rules to initialize some things but not others, and make sure that these associations were and weren't going the way that I expected them to. So, very interesting article. I do recommend reading it. It should get the juices flowing, get you thinking about things. But at the end of the day, I nixed it. My colleague and I were both just ended up just kind of, I don't think so. So that's where we ended up. The other thing, which I think the prototypal model in JavaScript makes very, very difficult, is properly serializing and deserializing objects. Because Kitten still does not have the getOlder function, right? That's still not part of Kitten. So now Kitten has its own age. It has no way of incrementing its own age without cat. And so now if I do JSON.serialize, or stringify, JSON stringify of Kitten, the most common way to start serializing things. I have the age of the kitten, so I know I have something that's kitten. I know its age is 13, but I have no object history or hierarchy to recreate the proper prototypal patterns and know what functionality this kitten had. So I am going to stay with a more traditional OO approach, a little bit modified because JavaScript is JavaScript and there's a billion ways to do anything and none of them are quite right. Yeah, I'm holding off on prototypal JavaScript until somebody comes up with some clean patterns to deal with these issues. So that is me going on my soapbox about software design or language design and practical implications. So I am logging off for the night. I hope everyone enjoys this broadcast. If you get something out of it, please hit that favorite or that like button. That's a huge help to me. And also visit dracosoftware.com/dracomodel. It's a thing. And go ahead and test with it. You can leave me messages if you find something that worked, didn't work, drove you nuts. Shoot me a message. You can message me on LiveCoding TV. You can message me on Twitch, and you can message me on YouTube. Any of those to get in touch with me are perfectly fine. So whatever you're watching this in, just shoot me a quick message, and I do try to respond to everyone. I have not gotten to the point where I got so many people that that has been a challenge yet. So thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you enjoy using the tool. And I look forward to some feedback, and I'll talk to everyone next week. Have a great week.